What is up, everybody? It's Animac here for Anime Uproar, and today I will be talking about some truly major news about the 7 Deadly Sins series. We just got a brand new 7 Deadly Sins side story which focuses on Ban and Elaine's son, Lancelot. And this side story is clearly intended to serve as an important setup for the 4 Knights of the Apocalypse sequel series. On top of that, the most recent anime season of the 7 Deadly Sins, called Wrath of the Gods, is now finally available on Netflix. And the next season, titled 7 Deadly Sins Dragon's Judgment, is scheduled for January of 2021, provided that we don't run into any more delays due to the current global health crisis. As you can tell, there is so much to talk about, so let's get into it. If you enjoyed the 7 Deadly Sins content on this channel and you want us to keep it going and also cover the sequel, please leave a like to let me know. It really does help. And if you happen to be new to Anime Uproar or you just haven't subscribed yet, make this the video that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. If you don't do that, you're gonna miss a ton of our videos, even if you're subscribed. It's just how YouTube works. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at Anime Uproar. I'm actually going to be using Twitter and Instagram to interact with you guys about future 7 Deadly Sins video ideas. If that's something that interests you, definitely follow at Anime Uproar. Finally, this video will contain 7 Deadly Sins manga spoilers, and specifically spoilers for the new side story. With that in mind, please proceed with caution. You have been warned. Now, let's jump right into the Lancelot side story, which is still technically part of the original 7 Deadly Sins manga, not the sequel. This side story takes place sometime after the events of chapter 346, and it begins inside the Fairy King's forest where a human king and a fairy queen rule. The couple also have a son, the young Prince Lancelot, and when we first see Lancelot, he looks a lot like a girl. In fact, a human who enters the forest to sell human artifacts to the fairies mistakes Lancelot for a girl. This human merchant is actually a grifter. He is selling extremely common human items such as a mug, a pot, and a ladle, but he is telling the fairies that these are rare ancient human artifacts. Since the fairies don't know much about the human world, they are easily tricked by the human. The fairies are willing to trade much rarer and more valuable fairy items for these completely worthless human trinkets. It's all going pretty well for the merchant until he sees Lancelot. At first, the merchant can't even tell whether Lancelot is a human or a fairy, but he is convinced that Lancelot is a girl, and an adorable girl at that. He promises to give Lancelot an exceptionally rare human item if he agrees to meet him after everyone else has left. The innocent-looking Lancelot smiles and agrees. If your creep radar is going off the charts right now, you are exactly right, because the merchant's plan is to capture Lancelot and sell him to some rich weirdo perverts for a high price. Clearly, this human is an absolute piece of garbage, and he reminds me of the people who tried to do a similar thing to a young Ban all those years ago. But as the merchant attempts to capture Lancelot, he instantly regrets his decision. Lancelot punches him in the gut and threatens to kill him if he ever comes back. Lancelot then kicks the merchant in the face and sends him flying. It is only after kicking his ass that Lancelot tells the merchant that he is not a girl. Lancelot then proceeds to return all of the items that the fairies traded to the human back to their original owners. And this whole little event tells us quite a few interesting things about Lancelot as a character. Clearly, he is sharper than the average fairy because unlike the other fairies, he was not tricked by the human's lies. Lancelot is also strong for his age because he effortlessly beats up an adult human even though he is only like 10 years old. Finally, we see that Lancelot has a strong sense of justice. As the son of the king and queen, he didn't have to involve himself with this merchant and his scheme. Lancelot could have just ignored it, or he could have asked his father or someone else to handle it. However, Lancelot felt that it was his duty to put a stop to the merchant's scheme and to return all the items to their original owners. This tells us that, despite being the son of the king and queen, Lancelot is not an elitist. He isn't too stuck up to concern himself with the affairs of normal people, and he feels that it is his duty to correct the wrongs committed by the human merchant, especially since the trickery took place on the territory that is controlled by his father. and instead of letting Ban, Elaine, or Jericho patrol the forest and deal with the lawbreakers, the young Lancelot has taken it upon himself to carry out those duties despite his young age. In fact, Lancelot appears to be a very serious and responsible young man. He considers just playing around or going on adventures to be a useless endeavor. Meanwhile, he considers patrolling the forest and punishing evildoers to be a far more important and useful activity. Lancelot even confronts his father Ban and tells him that he should be more proactive as king. He should be preventing humans like that merchant from tricking the fairies and perpetuating their schemes on their territory. Lancelot grills Ban about needing to be more aware and responsible as king, but Ban is just like, oh, sorry. Then Lancelot says, okay, it's fine as long as you understand, and Ban responds by saying, as expected of my son, and he proceeds to thank Lancelot for all the help that he has been to the king. As Lancelot leaves, Ban asks Elaine if she thinks that Lancelot has become more difficult lately, and Elaine just says that he's at that age, so it makes sense. Man, I really loved seeing my boy Ban again. It's been months since the Seven Deadly Sins manga ended, and I was so happy to see my favorite character Ban playing an important part in this side story. I also loved seeing Ban interacting with his family, including Elaine and Lancelot. I always wondered what kind of parents they would be and what kind of children they would have, so this side story has been an awesome experience for me personally. And speaking of awesome experiences, we then get to see my girl Jericho. Jericho is apparently Lancelot's master, and she is the one training him. I absolutely love Jericho's new look. She now wears her hair long and loose, and she's got like a black leather outfit that looks damn good. I've always said that Jericho is a top tier waifu, despite the fact that some Seven Deadly Sins fans seem to dislike her. I guess they don't like her because she started out as a villain, and a pretty crappy villain, to be honest. And some people don't like her because they want Ban and Elaine to end up together, and so they saw Jericho as an obstacle. But I actually love the fact that Jericho started off as a crappy villain and developed over the course of the story into a great character and a quality waifu. When she first appears in the story, Jericho is extremely insecure and she is willing to do anything to get stronger, including drinking demon blood. But eventually Jericho changes. She stops being a villain, she falls in love with Ban, and she becomes a force for good in Britannia. I love how her relationship with Ban develops slowly and gradually, and I especially love how, despite the fact that she is in love with Ban, Jericho loves Ban so much that she wants him to be happy, even if that means that he won't be with her. After Elaine comes back from the dead and she nearly kills Jericho, Jericho still decides to risk her own life in order to save both Ban and Elaine from Galland and Melascula. Jericho actually risks her life to save her biggest romantic rival because she knows that Ban would be devastated if Elaine died. And Jericho loves Ban so much that she can't bring herself to make him suffer, even if that means sacrificing her own happiness. Compare Jericho to someone like Vivian, and you'll know why I really like Jericho as a character and as a waifu, and I especially like her new post-time skip look. But back to the story. It turns out that back when he was visiting Leonis for Tristan's birthday, Lancelot got into a fight with Tristan. And during that fight, Lancelot got hit on the head and he now has a scar on the right side of his forehead. We also learned that sometime after that fight, Lancelot inherited the ability to read the hearts of other people from his mother Elaine. This means that he knows what people are thinking or feeling on the inside, even if they never actually told him their thoughts and feelings. The chapter then jumps back to that human merchant who is trying to escape the forest after getting that beating from Lancelot. But as the merchant attempts to run away, he suddenly vanishes into thin air. It is clear that he has literally disappeared as a result of some unknown magic force, although at first we have no idea what kind of force this is. Meanwhile, back inside the forest, Jericho has convinced the young Lancelot to cut his hair and change his clothes so that he stops being mistaken for a girl. Elaine likes Lancelot's new look, and once Ban returns from one of his patrols, he decides to unwind with some delicious Aberdeen ale. Lancelot wants to try some Aberdeen ale, so Ban, like every good anime father, is like, hey, sure my 10-year-old son, have some alcohol, but only a sip. For a moment, Lancelot is able to hear the voice of Zhivago in Ban's heart, and we see a few heartwarming sketches of Ban and Zhivago. Ban's backstory is definitely my favorite in the entire series, and the 7 Deadly Sins have some amazing backstories, so that's saying a lot. I love Zhivago and his relationship with Ban, so I'm not gonna lie, I kind of got goosebumps when I read this part of the side story. Very cool, Nakaba, very cool. Lancelot then gets the silly idea that he can grow up quicker if he drinks more of the ale, and he ends up downing the entire mug. Ban is like, "I said one sip, you stupid kid," and both Ban and Elaine are concerned about Lancelot since he just drank so much ale. But Lancelot says he's fine, the drink was just bitter, and he totally feels like an adult now. I mean, I guess Lancelot really is a lot like his father Ban, especially when it comes to his personality. He is stubborn, impulsive, brave, and he likes to drink booze. Right after that, Ban is informed by some of the other fairies that they might have a problem. The merchant who had been in the forest earlier vanished into thin air. The place where the merchant disappeared doesn't have any secret underground caves or anything like that, and what's more, there's been a rumor going around Britannia that humans have been randomly disappearing. According to the rumors, the victims are always human, and in cases where members of other races were present, those individuals were always left behind and only the humans disappear. This rumor has been so persistent that even Meliodas is concerned about it, and so Ban decides that they will have to investigate the situation first thing in the morning. Lancelot immediately asks Ban to let him help out with the mission, and he promises to be useful. But Ban refuses and tells Lancelot to go back to the castle. Ban looks pretty stern and serious in this moment, and it is clear that he is concerned about this disappearing phenomenon, and he definitely doesn't want his son getting mixed up in any of this. Once they return to the castle that night, Ban expresses concern to Elaine about Lancelot changing recently. Ever since he went to Lyonesse, Lancelot has been trying to act more like an adult, and he's been a lot more serious and responsible. Ban thinks that the reason why Lancelot might be changing is because he unlocked the ability to read hearts back when he was in Lyonesse. And so Ban is worried that this new power might have changed Lancelot. But Elaine assures Ban that she has that very same power, so Lancelot was bound to unlock it. The ability to read hearts alone is not enough to change someone's personality, and in fact, Elaine tells Ban that he is the real reason why Lancelot has changed. Ban is confused at first, but Elaine explains that when Lancelot went to Lyonesse, he realized what a respected person his father was, what a heroic warrior his father was, and how legendary the exploits of the 7 Deadly Sins were. On top of that, just like he did with Tristan, Gowther used his powers to show Lancelot the full story of his father Ban and his father's history with the 7 Deadly Sins. This is what inspired Lancelot to change. He wants to become a great knight like Ban, and he wants to be recognized and respected by his father. That is why Lancelot is suddenly so interested in being serious and acting like a grown-up. He doesn't want to be just a little kid anymore who goes around playing games. He wants to become a powerful ruler and knight like his father Ban, and he wants to live up to the legend of his father. Thanks to Elaine, Ban finally understands what's going on with Lancelot, and as Lancelot sleeps in his bed that night, Ban tucks him in and tells him that he doesn't need to rush to become an adult. I thought that this was a really great and heartwarming moment, especially knowing what a difficult childhood Ban had had and how he had no choice but to grow up way too fast. The fact that Ban now wants to protect his son and wants him to just enjoy his childhood is beautiful and makes perfect sense within the context of Ban's story. When he wakes up the next day, Lancelot ventures out on his own and he is carrying his makeshift spear, or I guess we can call it a lance, to stay on brand. On his walk, Lancelot encounters Jericho, and in that very moment, Ban snaps awake. In the dream that he just had, Ban saw himself back in his childhood, in the very moment that he decided to rush in to rob a mansion without waiting for Zhivago. And this was despite the fact that Ban was specifically instructed to wait for his father. This moment led to Ban being captured and beaten by the owners of the mansion, and he lost contact with Zhivago after that, at least for the time being. After recalling such a traumatic moment in his dream, Ban goes out to look for Lancelot, but he realizes that Lancelot is gone. Lancelot has disobeyed his father's orders, and he has decided to investigate the disappearing humans phenomenon on his own. Thankfully, Jericho had a feeling that Lancelot would go out alone, so she decides to accompany him. Lancelot wants Ban to take him seriously and to stop treating him like a kid, and Lancelot believes that solving this mystery is the perfect opportunity to earn Ban's respect. As it begins to rain, Lancelot and Jericho suddenly see a spot where the rain appears to split. It is as if everything is being rained on except for a single spot which is about the size of a large doorway. At first, Lancelot and Jericho think that this might be an illusion, but Lancelot remembers that it had also rained back when the human merchant had disappeared. Suddenly, Lancelot and Jericho hear a voice. The voice says, "Quick, come here." Jericho wants to retreat and tell Ban about it, but the stubborn and reckless Lancelot decides that he will rush in alone. Jericho can't let this happen, so instead of going back to get Ban, she grabs Lancelot's hand and the two of them walk inside the mysterious doorway together. As they do, they both appear to vanish into thin air. Okay, so I guess Jericho isn't the best babysitter, but she's still really hot, okay? We then see Ban rushing through the forest in an attempt to find Lancelot, but as we know, it's too late. By the time Ban arrives to the spot where the doorway had been, Lancelot and Jericho are gone, and so is the rain. That means that the doorway itself is gone, and Ban will not be able to follow Lancelot. The text on the final page tells us that Ban and Elaine searched for Lancelot and Jericho for years, but their search didn't yield any results. Finally, several years later, Prince Lancelot returned as the Prince of the Lake, but that is for another story. The sidebar of the page also tells us to stay tuned because the sequel manga is being worked on as we speak. This is a pretty frustrating ending for all of us who want more answers about what just happened, but this side story definitely serves as a great setup for the sequel. You better believe that I am now extremely curious to find out what is going to happen to Lancelot and Jericho, and what Ban and Elaine are going to do now that their son is lost, at least for the time being. Thankfully, Arthurian legend provides us with some important answers about what just happened to Lancelot. We all know that the Seven Deadly Sins series is very heavily influenced by the legend of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. In the past, I made an entire video talking about all the clues that Arthurian legend can provide us with for the upcoming sequel. But this new side story gives us some completely new insight on the direction that the sequel manga might take. In Arthurian legend, Lancelot and Tristan are close friends, and they are among the strongest knights of the Round Table. In the legend, Lancelot is the son of King Ban and Queen Elaine, just like in the Seven Deadly Sins. But in Arthurian lore, King Ban and Queen Elaine are forced to flee their kingdom by an enemy king, and they take the young Lancelot with them. As Ban dies in Elaine's arms, the young Lancelot is taken by the Lady of the Lake, and she then raises him inside her magical realm. As a result of this unique upbringing, Lancelot is sometimes called Lancelot du Lac or Lancelot of the Lake. As we know, the Lady of the Lake has already been introduced in the Seven Deadly Sins story, although we know very little about her. We just know that she is a powerful magical being created by chaos, and that she has access to secret magical knowledge. Clearly, the Seven Deadly Sins manga and the sequel are not going to follow Arthurian legend exactly. Ban and Elaine were not forced to flee by an enemy king, and Ban did not die. However, it is clear from this Lancelot side story that Lancelot has just been taken by the Lady of the Lake, just like in the original Arthurian tale. Why else would he eventually return as the Prince of the Lake, which is very similar to the original legend, in which he returns as Lancelot of the Lake. Continuing on with Lancelot in Arthurian legend, we know that he is going to be knighted and become one of the Knights of the Round Table. The Lady of the Lake will also give him a powerful magical ring that can break through any spell, and I expect that this ring might play an important role in the sequel. Beyond that, we know that Lancelot is supposed to become involved in a forbidden love affair. Believe it or not, Lancelot has an affair with Queen Guinevere, the wife of King Arthur himself. Now, obviously we know that the Seven Deadly Sins take huge liberties with the Arthurian legend story, so I don't actually expect Lancelot to steal Arthur's girl, although that would be a pretty crazy twist. But such raunchy romantic intrigue just doesn't seem to fit into the Seven Deadly Sins world, at least that's my personal opinion. I am very curious to see why the Lady of the Lake, in the world of the 7 Deadly Sins, decided to take Lancelot and raise him inside her magical realm. In the original legend, she raises Lancelot because his father, King Ban, dies, but clearly that is not the case here. Also, we know that in the world of the 7 Deadly Sins, the Lady of the Lake has a close connection to Chaos Power and to Excalibur. So I wonder if Chaos Power is going to play a role in Lancelot's upbringing / training. At any rate, this entire side story was a very interesting development. First, we got to see how Ban and Elaine are doing, and we finally met their son Lancelot. But then the side story took a much darker turn as Ban and Elaine lost their son, at least for a number of years. And the culprit appears to be the Lady of the Lake. We still don't know what exactly the Lady of the Lake wants with Lancelot, and I honestly can't wait to find out more. After this massive cliffhanger, I must say that I am very excited for the sequel manga. But let me know what you guys think. Did you enjoy this Lancelot side story, and does it make you more excited for the sequel? Also, do you like Lancelot as a character? And why do you think that he was seemingly abducted by the Lady of the Lake? Please share your thoughts down in the comments below. And most importantly, let me know if you agree with me that Jericho is a top tier waifu, even if she isn't the greatest babysitter. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more 7 Deadly Sins and sequel content right here on the channel, please leave a like to let me know. And if you happen to be new to Anime Uproar, or you just haven't subscribed yet, make this the video that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. Remember that you really have to go through the trouble of hitting that bell and selecting the option that says all. That is the only way to make sure that YouTube will actually show you our videos. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Anime Uproar. I want to give a big thank you to all of our Anime Uproar patrons who make videos like this one possible. An extra special thank you to Alpha, a disciple of Lord Twigo himself. And I can't forget our The One tier patrons, the ones who rise above all other clans, including Ingrata, Alolanatum, The World, Steelers, A Quiet Respect, Pate Heffa, Jonathan King, Brandon Aviles, Papa Smurf, Emperor Otaku, Thomas Jones, and Kinmano. Finally, big thank you to all of our Pro Hero tier patrons, including the one and only Gilgamesh, Nothing But a Fan, Jason Wilson, King Zeldris, Anatoly Kazatsky, Angel Cruz, Cricket XP, Joe Stanton, Very Gucci, Alicia Akhter, Jessica K. Lafont, Hinokami and Water, Bonnie Parks, Rathuin Deora, Deadly Saint, and Stern Hawkins. If you enjoy our videos and you feel that they provide value to you, consider supporting us on Patreon. Even a single dollar will give you access to our Patreon exclusive Discord, and your name will appear in our videos along with these amazing people. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys.